pass the torch.
Thank you so much, Mary. Wow, I'm just honored to be amongst you. I like seeing the silver in the hair.
We like seeing the hair.
Okay, do I get a we just like seeing? So we can take that a lot of places. I jokingly tell people that every time I read the Bible, God adds a new verse to it. And so about 20 years ago, when this stuff started turning colors for real, I was reading through my Bible, and I came to Psalm 71:17. Anybody know what that says? This is the theme verse for us. It's definitely mine. It says, "Oh God, you have taught me from my youth, and to this day I declare your wondrous works. Now also, when I am old and gray-haired, oh God, do not forsake me, until I declare your strength to this generation, your power to everyone who is to come." And so I'm just thrilled to have gray hair and keep on going. Because God is better than my gray hair. And I won't spend long on gray hair jokes. Steve, in honor of you, I just have to ask if everybody knows what kind of car the disciples drove. Don't you even? Yes, ma'am.
A Honda,
It was a Honda. How do we know that?
because they traveled in one accord.
Because they were all in one accord. Okay, so who wins the prize for the worst joke? Steve? Me? Nobody? Okay, we tried, Steve. Seriously, there are some principles by which I'm coming to you today. One is something that my mentor, John Maxwell, made live. I won't say he's the first person I heard say it, but he kind of sunk it in. And that is, if you're going to bring up a problem, make sure that you have 3 solutions. And at least one of the solutions involves you. So I'm going to talk about a problem, but I'm also really going to talk about the solutions, at least for us. Second thing that colors what I'm going to say, no pun intended. Yeah, some of you got it. Is that the secret of the Secret Service, and some of you probably know this, when it comes to the identification of counterfeit currency. Y'all know how they train them?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
They train them only by looking at real bills.
Exactly. They keep the counterfeit away from them. But they know what real money looks like, tastes like, smells like, sounds like, feels like. And if there's anything else it could be like, they know that too. They absolutely never touch counterfeit money. Never see it. And so when they're out and about on their daily work and someone says, "Is this counterfeit money?" They don't know whose plates it were. They don't know what town it was made in. They don't know who the counterfeiter is. All they know is this is not real. And so when I come to stand before you, I am definitely not an expert on critical race theory. The reason I am not is because I choose to be an expert on Jesus Christ, God of the Bible, and the work of the Holy Spirit in the world today. And even as a high school student, because I started reading my Bible in high school. Even as a high school student, my teacher could say something, and I couldn't explain why, but I could tell him that's not true. How many of your children and grandchildren can do that in their classrooms today? How many of them know when what the teacher is saying is contrary to the Word of God? So I bet you kind of know where I'm going with the solution. We got to get in the Word. It's nice to read books about the Word. You know, I got 2 up here and one that comes by email. But it's the Word. So briefly put, what cubbyhole do we give to critical race theory? How many of y'all have heard of Marxism? Okay, that's the cubbyhole. Marxism is an ideology, a way of thinking. And it simply says, if we keep people fighting one another over things over which they have no control, that's key, they will be too busy noticing the tyranny of the government that is taking over their lives. The root of critical race theory is that the group we're going to pick to single out is black versus white. And really, it's everybody versus white. But right now, we're getting it as black versus white. And the premise of it is that white people, by their very birth, are privileged and automatically oppress people of color. And the people of color need to stand up and demand not just to be treated properly now, but to be paid back for all the bad things that have happened in centuries ago. That's the premise. I think it might be Larry Elder who said, you know, one of the premises of critical race theory is reparations. And he says reparations is when people who never owned slaves pay back those who never were slaves. Okay? It's built on some things that this book teaches me otherwise. So when I look at people who, you know, and I'm sorry, it's kind of a joke, you know, but the saying is, you know, some of my best friends are white. You know? But I've had on more than one occasion to argue with people who want to say, well, the problem with the kids in the ghetto is white people. The problem with this is white people. And I simply look at them and I say, I thought you believed in God. White people aren't that strong. White people aren't that good. White people aren't that able. They're people. Nobody can stop you from accomplishing what you set out to accomplish but you. And yes, I've heard some things said that were inappropriate in this community. But guess what? I've heard some things said that were inappropriate in black community. Okay, people are people. If I spent 29 hours with each one in this room, first of all, you'd find out I'm not the prize. Oh, you'd get sick of me. Some of you I would get sick of. And some of you I would love to death. But it's not because of skin color. It is personality. It is character. It is who we are. Now, in our schools, and then I'm going to move on. In our schools today, the big debate is CRT being taught in our schools? In other words, I think the school boards are playing these literal games. And they're saying, oh, it's not in the curriculum. Oh, no, we don't teach that. In other words, if you walk in any school, I can say Oldham County, that's where we are, so I'll just stick here. Any school in Oldham County, they don't teach CRT. That means you will not find a book on the bookshelf that says critical race theory, and this is what we're teaching. No, you'll never find that. Because critical race theory is not a curriculum. I said it already, it's an ideology. It is a way of teaching people how to think. And so our kids are getting assigned, well, not mine, mine's grown. But the kids now are getting assignments that say things like, you're on you're in a building, you're being surrounded by enemies, and there's you, and there's this person, and there's this one with the baby, and there's that one, and the baby starts to cry. And the parent can't make the baby stop crying. And if the baby continues crying, the people that are going through the building looking for you will find you. The only solution, this is what the kids are actually told, the only solution seems to be to kill the baby. Will you kill the baby? Now, what's the point of that assignment? None. But our kids are being forced, and that was a middle school assignment, to ask themselves those questions. Or there is the privilege walk, where we all line up on the same line. And then you take 2 steps forward if you're born white. You take 3 steps back if you were born in the ghetto. You take 2 steps back if you've seen a murder. You take 3 steps forward if your parents still live together. And the objective is to see which kids are winding up way ahead of which other kids, and see, you guys will never make it in life. Or at least you're going to have a really hard time, because those people are ahead of you. I substituted out here for a while, till COVID. Don't wear a mask, can't go back until they get rid of the masks, mandates. But one day, just got a burr in my bonnet, and I asked my kids, the kids I was subbing, I said, so tell me something, guys, how many of you think that the reason, and hear how I phrase this, because I did it on purpose, the reason there are poor people in our country is because there are rich people who keep all the money? Now, is that not a ridiculous thought or what? I had hands go up. So that gave me an opportunity to go on my 10-second soapbox. And let me explain something, y'all. There's enough money and more besides for everybody to have more than you'll ever be able to use. The reason there are poor folks is because poor folks don't realize they don't have to be poor. They can get out, start something. Dave Ramsey says, go out, kill something, and bring it home. You can go out, start something, make it profitable, and be as rich as you want to be. It doesn't matter what anyone else has. Critical race theory is a victim oppressor way of seeing life. And it's saying my problems are your fault and you have to fix it for me. The last school board meeting, I don't know if any of y'all saw my letter to the school board. The last school board meeting, I was not specific because I really feel for these people. I really do. This is ridiculous. But there was a young girl who came into that meeting with a disease, a deadly disease. And she said she needs everybody in masks because she doesn't feel comfortable going to school if other people aren't in masks. And then the discussion became, well, but if my child wears a mask, my child is going to get a rash, or my child is going to start having nosebleeds, or my child is going to start having headaches. And do you understand that none of these children could control their situation? You see that? Nobody can help this. But now they are at one another's throats over something they cannot control. And what are we hiding? We're hiding that they are being, all of them, manipulated by us. Just keep that mindset. That's all you need to get. That mindset. Instead, ladies and gentlemen, here's your first solution. We live in the United States of America. Our school board takes an oath of office to uphold the Constitution of the United States of America and the Constitution of the state of Kentucky, the Commonwealth of Kentucky. Under the Constitution, first of all, health is not a property of government. They should not be mandating. They should not be regulating. They should not be ensuring. Health is not a federal function. And yet, we have a federal government telling us how to take care of ourselves. The first issue, folks, is please know your Constitution. Please. The course I'm studying, and the course I facilitate, it's all about read it, study it, teach it, so that you can know your rights, defend your rights, and assert your rights. Now, am I saying nobody should wear a mask? No. I'm saying everyone should have the responsibility of choosing whether or not you need a mask. But we need some common sense. You and I both know. How many of you have been in a hospital room with a very sick person and they ask you to put on a mask? Did you need 2 masks? One for you and one for them? The theory is, if a mask is going to stop it, you only need one. So if you're vulnerable, you wear a mask. If I'm not vulnerable, I don't need a mask. Your mask, if it's true, is going to protect you from me anyway. Think. Critical race theory is a big picture, and it's all about not thinking, but knee-jerk reacting in fear to other people around you. So you go in Walmart and somebody's not wearing a mask and you think you have the right to attack them verbally? Know your Constitution. Know what your government is and is not supposed to do. I have a Saturday morning wake-up call, Saturday mornings from 9 to 11. It's virtual by Zoom. It's live at Covenant United Methodist Church. And I encourage you, leave me your contact information. I'll enroll you. You'll know when we're meeting. Just start learning. Second solution. Anybody want to tell me what the second solution is? Because it's the big one. You already know. You don't want to admit you know. Right here. We cannot study this word enough. The founding fathers knew it so well. They didn't have to write down what verses they were quoting when they were developing the Constitution. But if you know this book and you start reading the Constitution, you begin to say, they're saying the same things. So when you tell me that I don't, well, when I tell you, because I guess I'm the one that could do that here, when I tell you that you owe me because of what your grandparents did to my great-grandparents, you can come right back at me and remind me of the servant who owed a debt way beyond what he could pay. And he went to his master and he said, please, I cannot pay that debt. Would you please help me, forgive me that debt? And his master forgave him that debt. But then he went out and found a friend of his who owed him lunch money from last week. And he said, pay me that lunch money you owe me. He said, oh man, I don't have any change. Can I get you next to? No, you're going to jail. And he threw him in jail. And the king came back and said, I forgave you so much, and you will not forgive them so little. You go to jail. You see, every issue of difference and disagreement in life ultimately is an issue of, can I choose to forgive? That's what this book tells us. I don't even want to say what I've had happen to me that was kind of ugly. But I don't care what they've done to me. I know the life I've lived. I know my failures. I know my faults. I know how I've stood in the face of God and offended him. How dare I not extend forgiveness? And now here's the trick of forgiveness. You can't forgive anybody unless they offend you. Okay? So yeah, they did offend you. Yes, what they did was wrong. That's why we forgive. Critical race theory is one person holding against another person something that one person has no authority over in their life. But I'm going to use it as the basis for an argument between the two of us that allows us to forget the fact that there is an oppressive government taking over our world. The answer is here. Living, reading, sharing God's word. I said I'd do Q&A because I know I didn't go where you wanted me to go. I didn't go where I went with Mary on the phone last week. But I hope it's okay when I did go. So what's your question? What do you want to know? What is it that you want to put out in the open when it comes to what's going on in our world right now with this critical race theory Marxist trying to take over America? Yes, Jan.
Who in the school board or wherever decides the curriculum, decides the books these children are going to read that stirs this animosity?
This is what is so complicated. Because the school board actually does not choose curriculum. Every school has a site-based decision-making council that supposedly chooses curriculum. When I was teaching, it was a free-for-all to get a book. That's 12 years ago now. So, but it was a free-for-all. That's one of the things. We do have a group called Raise Your Voice Oldham County. And we work through Facebook page. We show up at school board meetings. We are looking for conservative candidates to run for our school board. Because right now, every vote is unanimous, and that's not good. And the decision they're making is not appropriate. But we're not sure. It's supposed to be the site-based decision-making council. My personal theory is they may pick the books, but the school board approves the spending. So if the school board knows what's in the books they want to approve, you just don't approve that book. But it's not that simple, but it is that simple. I would say it's easy, but not simple. So that's where we are. I will tell you as a sub, those of you with children, grandchildren, please look at what your kids are studying. Get into those books. I was subbing in an English classroom, and somebody somewhere thought that a culturally relevant book to help people understand Black people would be a book about dopes, gangs, and violence. And they left the book on their desk, and I was all the classes were reading it, but they had a lower functioning group, and so they wanted me as the teacher for the day to read the book to the kids. And I read about 2 paragraphs. I closed the book. I said, y'all tell y'all's teacher that this sub is not reading this kind of trash to you. If you want to read it, you read it on your own. And I went and sat down. But they bring it. You know, you want to teach Black culture, talk about Condoleezza Rice, talk about Herman Cain, talk about Ben Carson, talk about people, what's the movie about the lady that did the Apollo flight?
Oh, yeah.
You know,
Hidden Figures.
Hidden Figures. Talk about that. Give the minority students a vision of what is possible. Don't fill them full of laments over what ought not be, but is. I kind of think that's how we've done white history. We teach what's good. We mention some bad stuff. I mean, American history is not really perfect and all that. But more than anything, we give vision. And that's what our schools are no longer doing. They're teaching kids how to make excuses instead of how to overcome. It was a bad answer. It's a bad situation. Another question? Yes, sir.
I guess I want to show my ignorance a little bit here. I guess the school board people are elected by us.
That's another.
Oldham County, you know?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
And that's another
I'm not
interest.
sure. Is I just check off whatever. I don't really review what their ideological situation is.
Yes.
You know, so we're putting people in there that have these thought processes that are just not right.
Exactly.
We need to do a better job of discerning who's running and who's not.
Right. So what he's saying is we're putting the people in. The Constitution begins with what 3 words?
We the people.
We the people. If our government goes south, and I didn't know this until I started doing these lessons that I do. There are journals that go along with every session of legislative bodies. At least there were from back then. I'm not positive they still exist, but they ought to. And they transcribed all the debates, all the conference. So every point that was put in the Constitution, you may have pages explaining why they put that point there that way. And so when it comes to the schools, public school systems were established for the purpose of creating a generation of patriots who love and honor God and who love and honor their families. Have you seen a high school kid lately? They're doing great on all 3, right? Okay. So that's second thing, they understood the election process requires the selection of people who uphold the values of the Constitution. Swearing an oath on a Bible you don't believe in is a farce. We put people in office who don't even believe in God. That's our fault. I want to encourage you to join your county party club. I don't know, I can't tell you when they both meet, so I won't tell you where either one of them meets. That's your homework assignment. Because the candidates come with the support of the party. And what I found out is our parties do not vet our candidates. So anybody that comes forward and says, I'm me, I want to run for office on our ticket, we support them. But we don't know what they stand for. Become involved in your local party. There's a women's branch of each party. Go to those meetings, start learning, start making your voice heard. If you're not registered to vote, do not tell me that, except you're the only one in this room that shouldn't be registered to vote. Because you're too young. Everybody else, I know and you too back there. I know everybody else is registered, and I know, like my daddy did, you don't miss an election. But then, like you said, we don't know the candidates. The current Board of Education, 5 members, all 5 were appointed as midterm replacements for people. Now, were they all elected? I'm not even sure. Most elections, if not all, they have all been unopposed. That's why we're looking for candidates. Anything else? What time should I be finished? 10 minutes ago? What's my end time? When I finish, next Tuesday at 8 p.m.? No. Yes, sir.
Equity versus equality confuses me a little.
I'm not an expert. Equity versus equality. And I may be wrong, because like I said, I don't study them real hard, but the way I think it boils down to, one of them says, you get a pickle, I get a pickle, we are both happy with a pickle. The other one says, you get a pickle, I haven't eaten for 2 weeks, so I get 3 pickles. And that way, now we're both supposedly at the same place. So like you gotta make up for somebody.
Okay.
And I think that's equity.
The outcome is the difference. Guaranteed outcome on equity and guaranteed opportunity is equality.
Okay, thank you. You're right. I think I have heard that. Guaranteed outcome is equity. So everybody's going to have the same result. So that's the teacher, the third grade teacher across the hall from me when I was teaching third grade, who on test day, she wrote the questions and answers on the board, and you copied the questions and answers, and everybody was guaranteed 100. That's equity. Guaranteed opportunity is, you know what, I gave you a review sheet yesterday with all the questions and you found the answers and we went over that. So you knew what the questions are, you knew what the answers are going to be, so now produce. You all have the same opportunity to produce. And that's equality. Thank you for that. Any other questions, thoughts, comments? We'll give it 5 more minutes if we need it. Yes, ma'am.
I know the answer is Christ, and us living as believers out in our community. I know that is the ultimate answer, but how do we reach students today that are being deceived by what they're hearing?
That's a good question, and it leads me to my next point. Now, I'm a leadership developer. We're going to have to, first of all, admit that the public school system cannot be the only education this generation is getting. And parents, grandparents, you're going to have to sometimes stop asking your kids if they want to do stuff and start telling them what they're going to do. I'm sorry, they don't know. So in January, for example, I'm going to be offering leadership summits. The target group is high school, but it's also for above high school. And I'm going to be introducing our kids to some thinking like leaders think, which all the principles of leadership that John Maxwell teaches come out of the Bible. It's not a Bible study, but it is a Bible application. And they're going to have the opportunity, for example, to look at the law of the inner circle, which basically said you're never going to rise any farther than the 5 closest people you hang out with. They're going to determine your level of accomplishment. That's why God told the Israelites when they moved into a new land, kill everybody there. I don't know, we hate to hear that. But he was incubating a new nation. And he knew they would not rise in their faith, in their walk with him, any further than the people around them, because we are always drawn to what other people are doing. And so he said, you must occupy that land alone. So who are the 5 people? So they're going to hear John Maxwell talk about 15 minutes on your inner circle. And then they're going to get an opportunity to say, okay, so who are my top 5 people at school? Who are my top people in the neighborhood? Who are my top people in the community? Who are my top people on the job? Because most of these high schoolers have jobs now. Are they taking me in a direction I want to go? Or are they taking me in a direction I don't need to go? Kids don't ask that question of themselves anymore. Parents don't ask kids that question anymore. Well, she's a cheerleader and she's cute, so yeah, y'all can hang. Right? So, and that's just one. I've got 5 speakers, actually 6 topics that they're going to talk about, that we're going to help the kids break it down to their level. The adults in the room, because adults are invited too, are going to be there to also answer those same questions at the adult level. So these kids get past the idea that when I'm 21, I can do anything I want. Right? They can't. How many of us have done anything we want since we were 21? Right? It gets worse, not better. So they need to see adults grappling with life issues. So those are the kinds, we're going to have to find those kinds of experiences and get our kids in there and get in there with them so that they see, oh yeah, it doesn't just fall from the sky. So it's called Live to Lead, and it'll be on Facebook and other places for January. And I hate to say it, Patriot Academy is another one. Kids get to dress up like Congress people and go actually sit in a hall of legislation, a state capitol building, and they actually do a mock legislative assembly, and they have to debate, and they have to filibuster, and they have to do what elected officials do to pass laws, and they get to see our government at work. Now, there is a CUNA, 2 words, K-Y-U-N-A, that is done, but the perspective is not necessarily constitutional. Patriot Academy is a constitutional perspective. So that's, again, it doesn't just matter what you learn, it matters who you learn it from. So we need to find these positive people. So I want to thank you so much for your time. I hope it wasn't too big of a I said I'd give a disclaimer on behalf of Mary. Those of you who are here for the first time, it's not always this bad. I do have some books and materials here, and my business cards if you just want to know how to reach me, and some crosses that I make kind of just to generate funds for my nonprofit and the youth ministry at the church where I am. Those are just donations. But thank you so very much for your time. And it's late, y'all. It's very late.
Amen.
But we can fight. Because God said, if my people, anybody here one of his people, who are called by his name, anybody here called by his name, then we've got to humble ourselves. We've got to pray. We've got to seek his face. And we've got to turn from our wicked way. Now, our wicked way isn't just about stabbing, shooting, and all that. It's about our tremendous apathy for the things of God. It is about for how long we have allowed everything to be more important in the lives of our children and grandchildren than being in church and Sunday school. It is about forcing our churches to no longer offer youth choirs and youth dramas because our kids are too busy sporting. Those are wicked ways. We are worshiping at the altar of Baal, and our kids are the ones suffering. So if we do that, guess what we don't have to ask God to do? We don't have to ask him to heal the land. That is not our job. He will heal the land when we do what he told us to do. So let's get busy.
Amen.
God bless you.